In today's video, we have a huge almost trade that I want to talk about. There's a big rumor out of Montreal media talking about what their plan B was in case Carey Price ended up going to Seattle. We're also going to take a look at the latest rumors surrounding the remaining top unrestricted free agents still looking for work. And we have a couple of pieces of sad news in the hockey world as well I want to pass on as well. We'll discuss all that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have a variety of things to talk about here today. First up, we do have a couple of really sad news items I just want to quickly touch on and offer our thoughts and condolences here. First up, if you watch TSN, you're probably very familiar with sportscaster Darren Detition. He's been there, it feels like forever. I'm not sure exactly how many years. It's got to be 15, 20 years or more. I don't know exactly when he started, but it's been a really long time. I mean, I know myself, feels like I've been watching him here forever. He did announce today that he's going to be stepping away from TSN. You won't see him on SportsCenter for a while because unfortunately he's been diagnosed with cancer. So he is taking some time to take on that battle and that fight. I'm not sure what form of cancer. Didn't elaborate anything further, but you just never know. Cancer's an ugly word. Nothing that you ever want to hear brought up in your own personal health situation. And I just want to take a minute in which Dutchie, nothing but the best. I'm sure he will kick cancer's butt and be back on SportsCenter in no time. I know he keeps himself in excellent shape. The guy works out like a ton, but it goes to show you that no matter how much you try and keep yourself in tip-top health, that still doesn't mean you have a get-out-of-jail-free card when it comes to some life-altering illnesses. So I just want to wish him our thoughts and hope he does well with his battle. And secondly, we also got word that a longtime broadcaster in Hockey Night in Canada, CBC, Scott Oake, lost his wife, Anne, unexpectedly here in the past couple of days as well. If you're not overly familiar with their long story here, Scott Oake's been a broadcaster based out of Winnipeg for CBC and Hockey Night for a long time, often doing the West Coast games. They, of course, he and his wife lost their son, Bruce Oake, to an addiction battle back, I think it's about 10 years ago. And they have done so much to raise awareness. And they just recently, very recently, opened the Bruce Oake Recovery Center to help addictions and to kind of, really be a big help there. And then Anne suddenly passed away. I'm not sure exactly what the cause is or what happened. All we know is that she passed unexpectedly, and it seemed, from what I can gather, looks like it happened at home, was surrounded by family, so I don't know exactly what went down, but needless to say that that family has been through so much that I feel terrible for Scott Oake. Like, the family's already been through a lot, a number of years ago, losing their son, and Scott, in case you're, he's a really quite familiar with the Reeves family. Like, I know if you watch some of his interviews with Ryan Reeves over the years, it's the way those two carry on. It's absolutely fun to watch. But anyway, Scott Oake's one of my favorite broadcasters. I've always had somebody I've looked up to, and I just want to wish my condolences over to him as well. I can just imagine the tough time he and his other child Darcy are going through right now. So hopefully we can move away from some sad news here. We've had a lot of it in the hockey world here lately, it seems like, and obviously even a little bit is too much sometimes. But life happens, and it's just one of those things that all we can do is pass along our thoughts and prayers and condolences and hope they're doing okay. Now, as I mentioned today, I do want to take a look at a couple of different items. I want to first take a look at an article here from Sportsnet, which kind of outlines some of the top unrestricted free agents still looking for work with the latest updates on where they possibly might be heading, if there's any linkage to any specific team. And then I want to look at a huge almost trade. There's a big rumor out of Montreal of what the Habs were planning in case Price did get claimed by the Seattle Kraken in the expansion draft. Now, looking at the top unrestricted free agents left, I mean, one of the top ones that comes to mind here is Tuukka Rask. Of course, we can basically say he's a member of the Boston Bruins because it doesn't sound like he has any intention of playing anywhere else. I do believe he will sign with the Bruins here eventually, but I think before he signs a contract, he wants to complete his recovery and make sure that he's able to play. It doesn't sound like he's looking for a whole lot of money. Basically wants to come back and help the Bruins and then maybe chase a Stanley Cup if they're going to be in that kind of situation. But ultimately, Rask is unsigned, is a big name. Obviously he's had a lot of success in his career, big name goaltender, but it's either the Bruins or nobody. So I don't really expect him to be going anywhere else. He's made it clear he's retiring a Bruin, whether or not that be sooner or a couple of years or whenever that time might actually come. But obviously, given the fact that they signed Linus Ullmark and they have Swayman there, who had a solid year last year, to me, I think Rask, if he comes back, it's probably only going to be a one-year deal, would be my guess. I don't think Boston's going to want to commit any more than that. So we'll see if they sign a contract here eventually before the season starts, or maybe further into it. I'm not sure what they're going to do, because if they do wait and he signs later, then obviously that they gets a prorated cap hit. It will impact the AAV of the contract. So they might want to get a jump start on that and play someone LTIR until he's able to play. We also have 33-year-old right shot defenseman Jason Demers coming off a contract paying him $4.5 million. Obviously, the Coyotes didn't have any interest to bring him back. I believe that there was some talks about maybe him heading to Edmonton on a PTO. I've seen reports that the Edmonton Oilers seem to be interested in bringing in a right shot defenseman to the fold, somebody who had some experience that they could sign on a cheap contract. So Demers fits that bill. Like I said, he's 33. Not going to give you a lot of offense. I don't think he had any goals at all last year, but he's still playing 17, 18 minutes a night to stay-at-home kind of defenseman. Likely going to be taking a big drop in pay after making $4.5 million on his recent contract. So we'll see if he ends up going to Edmonton on a PTO. There probably would be a few other teams looking to bring in another veteran defenseman on a PTO as well. So I'm sure he'll end up somewheres. We also have Nikita Gusev as well. Now, Nikita Gusev can play either wing, ended up scoring a contract with the Florida Panthers after getting out of the deal with New Jersey last year at a one-year, $1 million contract. He's a right shot winger. Got off to a decent start his first year, but then the offense completely fell off the map after that. And we're in a situation now where he's 29 years old and is back, in a situation where he can't really produce a whole lot. So, I mean, he had a lot of success in the KHL. He could return there. But, we'll see. I mean, at the end of the day, there's teams looking for forward depth, and you have some guys like him and a few others that we'll mention here that are certainly looking for work. So, no linkage to any specific team, but Gusev is a potential guy. If he can find a right fit, I'm convinced he can be an impact player. You also have Travis Zajac, 36-year-old center iceman, coming off a contract paying him $5.75 million. It's believed, and I stress believed because we know what the secretive Islanders are like, that he is going to sign a one-year deal with the Islanders. But when they finally announced their flurry of contracts, we got deals for a bunch of players, but Zajac wasn't mentioned, and neither was Zach Parise. But I've seen reports saying that, according to what they're saying, that he and Parise both will be signing short-term, probably, I assume, one-year league minimum deals, but we don't know for sure. So even though Zajac's listed here, and he would be one of the better free agents out there, I still see him likely ending up with the Islanders. Now, of course, you get Sami Vatanen as well, 30-year-old defenseman, made $2 million last year. It's really interesting to see how it feels like it wasn't that long ago. At one point, he was a emerging top young right shot defenseman with Anaheim. The Ducks were a bit of a defense factory there for a period of time. They ended up trading away a lot of their younger D-men. And now he's bounced around a lot between Anaheim, New Jersey, Carolina, back to New Jersey, over to Dallas in the last few years. And he just can't seem to find that right fit and really get things going on a more consistent basis for his career. I would think a team like Boston, for example, who's been rumored to look at a right shot D, could look to him, or Jason Demers, as I mentioned. There could be some other teams out there as well. Hard to say where he goes, but there's certainly hard to imagine he doesn't get a contract somewhere. Even the Islanders, too, because we know the Islanders do want to add another defenseman. I'm not really sure that Vatanen's their guy, but they're looking for somebody who can log some minutes to replace Nick Leddy. So one of those two guys could be it, but they might prefer somebody that plays on the opposite side. I'm not sure. We'll have to see how they feel about it. Now, Zdeno Chara, of course, is 44 years old, still one of the bigger names out there. We don't really know what he's thinking after leaving the Bruins and signing a one-year deal with the Capitals last year. At this point, it doesn't seem like a return to Washington is in the cards. A return to Boston doesn't seem to be in the cards. There was a lot of talk about Florida, maybe St. Louis. Even some talk about going back to where things began for him, back to the Islanders, which actually do make a bit of a sense. I mean, he can't really give you everything that Nick Leddy gave you, but still, if he can be close to that, it might be a cheap option for Lou and the Islanders to consider. Even New York Rangers, too. I mean, the Rangers have a lot of D, but they have a lot of young D, and they might want to add another veteran back there. Hard to say that either way. I don't see him playing for a whole lot of money. I see him likely staying in the Northeast, possibly in the Southeast, but like somewhere in the Eastern Seaboard is most likely where he stays. We'll see, but to me, it'd be very, very interesting to see him go to the Islanders, but I think they might try something different there. 25-year-old forward Ryan Donato, who came out of college to the Boston Bruins and was just absolutely on fire to start. He was one of the top young players, or at least prospects there for a while, and then he's just fallen off a cliff. He's bounced around. He's been with multiple teams now since he was traded from Boston. The Sharks didn't want to take him back either, and it's hard to say where he ends up, but you'd have to think that he's better than some third and fourth line players out there. I can't imagine he doesn't get a contract somewheres. I've seen some Bruins fans talk even about a potential return to Boston, even though I don't really see that happening. You would think a team like an Arizona or a Detroit or a Buffalo who has some potential openings up for grabs, that he could maybe take a 1 year, $1 million contract and grab himself a job. You've also got Alex Galchenyuk, who finished the year with the Leafs last year. I don't know if we can completely say a return to Toronto is out of the question, but pretty much. I mean, at this point, Toronto hasn't completely closed the doors, what we're hearing. We even heard word about Montreal having interest, although I don't really know that there's really a whole lot to that. But there are some out there that seem to think that it is a possibility. Obviously, I'm not sure who he's talked to for teams, but those are the only ones he's been linked to. But after the way he played with the Leafs last year, you think he would have had something in place by now. You also have 35-year-old Tyler Bozak coming off a $5 million contract with the St. Louis Blues. Obviously left Toronto, where he played for a long, long time. Had a 3-year deal with the Blues. That's now expired. It was believed, according to Andy Strickland, that there was a contract on the table for him around $1.5 million for 1 extra year, and that he did not take it. He wanted to check around, kind of weigh out his options, and then things kind of moved, and they made other moves. A lot of other teams made other moves, and sorry you know it, you're kind of like the loser of the musical chairs game, so to speak, and suddenly that offer doesn't seem to be on the table anymore. If he wants to stay in St. Louis, it is a possibility they might bring him back, but at this point, he's going to have to probably take less money. The available cap space that Montreal has, I wouldn't completely rule out the possibility they consider bringing him in as another veteran centerman to help replace what they lost in Philip Deneau. Of course, they brought in Christian Dvorak, and they lost Kotkaniemi. Wouldn't be completely crazy to think Tyler Bozak could be a good fit there as well. Obviously, I'm a little bit surprised as well. This article doesn't mention it, but Bobby Ryan's another player that comes to mind. Played in Detroit last year on a 1-year deal. Didn't have a fabulous year, but he certainly got off to a hot start, and again, hampered by injuries, which has been the story of his life here for the last probably 4 or 5 years, which has really slowed things down in his production. But you would think that another cheap contract for 1 year at $800,000-900,000 would have been an option to him. At this point, we haven't really heard much of anything about him. Has not been linked to any specific teams, but I would think at the very least he'll grab a PTO here before we're all said and done. Now, before we go any further, I do want to pause for a moment and acknowledge our channel sponsor, Manscaped. Top Shelf Hockey is proud to be sponsored by Manscaped. Of course, with Manscaped, we have a special offer here for all Top Shelf Hockey viewers where you can get 20% off and free shipping on all orders at manscaped.com. Now, of course, Manscaped just launched a brand new Lawnmower 4.0 trimmer, which is a fantastic product. They've taken the level up here, even again with the skin-safe replaceable blades. It's waterproof, it's wireless charging, has a travel lock on it, as well as a nice light so you don't miss what you're doing. So certainly a terrific product. Now, many people associate Manscaped with their trimmers, which is certainly kind of their top product, but they do have a lot of other great options as well, including what they call the Weed Whacker, which is another trimmer for your ears and nose. And they have a variety of deodorants and sprays as well, which also keep you fresh and are terrific as well. So certainly Manscaped has a lot to offer, and we certainly highly recommend all of their products. So check out manscaped.com and use promo code TSH for 20% off and free shipping. So thanks very much for watching that promotional content. I do greatly appreciate it. Now, as I mentioned as well, there's also a huge rumor in Montreal media, and I've seen this probably about a week ago. I've just been holding off to talk about it in a video just because we've had enough other news and rumors to talk about. But obviously today there wasn't a ton of new information surfacing in the hockey world. So I was like, well, today would be a good day just to talk about this. Now, at the end of the day, this is just a rumor. It may not be true, but you know what? It doesn't even matter because I'm only bringing this up strictly for discussion purposes only. And I'll link the article in the pinned comment here. But there is a website based out of Montreal media that was saying that Marc Bergevin and the Habs had Plan B in place if Carey Price did get taken by the Seattle Kraken, that they had a trade lined up to acquire Marc-Andre Fleury from the Vegas Golden Knights in exchange for 2 draft picks, being a 3rd and 4th round pick. Of course, they never executed the deal because Price ended up not getting claimed. But there was a period of time there where there was a lot of uncertainty. After they exposed Price, it's pretty clear now that the information they put out regarding Price's health and the injuries he was dealing with were probably exaggerated to some degree. I mean, obviously at this point, Carey Price is expected to remain in training camp and be not miss any time. So based on where things were at when that first was released, it made it sound like he was going to be out for several months. Knee injury and hip surgery possible, and it really sounded pretty grim. And now he's not going to miss pretty well hardly any time, if none at all. So clearly, like I said, things were over-exaggerated. Seattle, certainly considered everything in place and decided that it wasn't an option for them because of the contract and the age, and it just, as much as it was interesting, it just, the risk outweighed the reward, so they felt they shouldn't proceed. But at the end of the day here, we know that Fleury ended up getting traded to the Chicago Blackhawks. They basically get nothing in return. They get a prospect that they didn't even want, who they ended up getting out of his contract later. So there was zero return. They just want their cap space back. And, for them to get a couple of draft picks out of Montreal would have been very interesting. I mean, Carey Price has a lot of years left at over $10 million, whereas Marc-Andre Fleury only has 1 year left at $7 million. So it's certainly a situation where I think for at least the coming year, the Montreal Canadiens would have been in good hands going with Fleury and Allen instead of Price or Allen. Of course, Fleury's the reigning Vezina Trophy winner. Would have been very interesting that obviously the Montreal was one of the few teams he would have considered going to, along with Pittsburgh. Besides staying in Vegas, that's really the only options that he was willing to consider, which is why when he ended up going to Chicago, that he really had to take some time and think about it. And obviously, ended up saying he will go play, but it was not an easy decision. So, at the end of the day here, Carey Price still has 5 years left, and it would have helped them get out of that contract a lot sooner. I really think in a way that, it was positioned that it was Price's idea to expose himself. And I think at the end of it here, I think Price was okay getting claimed to go to Seattle, as I mentioned before. If he's going to go anywhere else, that's an area that would be pretty good for him. I mean, obviously he's from the lower mainland, around the lower end of BC, so it's not far from home. He played his junior hockey in that area. He met his wife Angela there, so her family's from that area. It really would have been a good setup. If he wasn't going to be a Montreal Canadian, from a family perspective, that's probably the next best thing. So, he's 34 years old, soon to be 35. He's got this contract, making lots of money, and it could have given Montreal a ton of cap space, flexibility. Obviously, they have Jake Allen for a couple more years. They have a great goaltender like Caden Primo waiting in the wings here too. So it's just an interesting food for thought. I know Carey Price was largely responsible for their run to the Stanley Cup final last year, and I'm not suggesting that they should find a way to get rid of him or anything of that nature, but it's just interesting to know that there's at least this rumor suggesting that this is what they had as Plan B. And to me, it would have been a pretty good Plan B. I mean, if you're going to lose Carey Price, but you can immediately replace him with Fleury, he's slightly older than Price, making less money, more flexibility with the cap. Could have been a great thing long term, but at the same time, like I said, you can't deny the fact that Price has been so responsible for so much of the success and the wins there that, you can't really go wrong with him staying either. But I'd like to know what your thoughts are. If the Seattle Kraken would have taken that opportunity to draft Price, what were your thoughts being Marc-Andre Fleury now being your starting goaltender? Let me know your thoughts down below in the comments. We'll discuss further. If you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We will keep you up to date with all the latest news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.